The Graphic Histories Podcast.
I got bit by a radioactive bug. I tried an experimental drug. Went up for a stroll on a gamma testing range. I found an enchanted hurricane. I made a serum that made me small. I modified the serum so it would make me tall. Radioactive isotope in my eyes. Dying alien helped me accessorize. I gained the proportion and strength of a spider. Now I'm invincible and I can fly. I lost my sight, my other senses were heightened. I'm gonna put on my pajamas and go fight crime.
Hey there, and welcome to the Graphic Histories Podcast. My name is Andre Mayette, your podcast host. Big thanks to Uka the Mock for our theme song, Superpowers. And big thanks to you, gentle listener, for tuning in once again to another fun-filled, action-packed show. Today, I'm talking with Dakota Brown. We get into some interesting conversations. He is a writer. We talk about his writing. We talk about his work in theater and acting, improv, and all that fun stuff. It's really an actor's kind of episode, I feel as though. And not that I really promote myself as an actor. I say it in the Matt Berry way. But you know, I'm someone that I've been doing theater for 20 years. I'm someone that's been in some television, film stuff, not a ton, but enough to, you know, I've added on my resume. I can put it on there. And Dakota, of course, has a lot of experience in that realm, mostly in theater, and we do get into some deep talks about it. And it's a fun episode. I don't always get to do that. So, you know, this time being able to sort of discuss the craft, the process with someone else that's been doing it for a long time was very interesting. And yeah, and then of course connecting it to his work in comics and other things as well, which is a real pleasure. So great chat, really fun talk. This is a good one. This is a really, really fun one. They're all good ones, but this one is this one has a spark, I think. A little bit of a fun spark between me and Dakota, and I really enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy listening to it as well. Look, this summer has been a wonderful time for horror movies. It seems as though the horror world is exploding with cool, interesting stuff. A lot of cool stuff is coming already. A lot of cool stuff coming down the pipeline. This week I saw the movie Weapons, which I've been very excited to see, by Zach Krieger, who had done previously the movie Barbarian, which I just recently rewatched with my wife. It is a fantastic horror film. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's on Disney+. And it's certainly something different. You know, something cool, something different. Ooh. But something familiar. That was, if you heard that, that was my cats fighting each other in my room. What are you guys doing? Get over here. Never a dull moment here. Anyway, you know, it's the middle of summer. Things are ramping up. Things are getting busy and a little hectic. But, you know, soldier on, as I do. So today, I'm not going to give a big long intro, as I often say I don't, because often I'm mixing this in with all the busy shit I have on the go, and this is one of them. So here it is, my conversation with the wonderful Dakota Brown.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Doing well. How's the day so far?
Oh, I can't complain. How about yourself?
Not too bad. It's been a little bit of a misty rain here. It's been nice, and it's like the pleasant side of Silent Hill. Just a nice mist, no monster.
just no giant pyramid head guy coming at you out of the ether.
Not yet. No, my doorbell's been ringing, but you know, I've just been staying inside so far.
I kind of like the idea that it's like a guy living in a Silent Hill sort of world where he's just like a pleasant dude that doesn't want anything to do with it. He just like doesn't mind it. There's like horrors persisting all around him, but he just sort of like goes about his day to day and acts like everything.
Oh yeah, he's just trying to go get some coffee and bagels, but on the way somebody's just like got a pipe and a gun. He's like, "Get out of my way!" with his big sword. Yeah.
Just screaming and yelling and like weird like eldritch horrors running around him, but he just sort of like, you know, just keeps going straight ahead and not looking, not engaging. I think that's amazing. Well, speaking of the weather, whereabouts are you?
Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Ah, Tennessee. I don't know if I ever talked to someone from Tennessee.
Oh, really? Yeah, there's a bit of a comic community here. We've got Andy Duggan, who works on Star Wars, and Richard Starkings, who's worked on just about everything, and then Scott Fogg, who is like me and you know, an indie comics fellow. There's a little bit of a community here, but we're finding out that we're all here. It turns out.
Well, that's good though. Like that's kind of what I love about comics in general, or like you know, nerddom is that, you kind of find your people pretty quickly in a small area.
Yeah.
If there's a comic store or some kind of place where you can congregate, you'll find each other.
Yeah, I did a Heroes Con in June, and met several people there, but I did a con this weekend in Chattanooga and just saw people from Charlotte, where Heroes Con is, in Chattanooga. And it's this weird, once you're just doing the con circuit, you just see, same people, different places all the time. It's fascinating, but starting to see similar faces, and that's always exciting.
Well, I'm in Canada, so when I go to like cons and stuff, I'm running other people. Like the Canadian comic people seem to all know each other. Like this guy that's from like the other end of the country, and they'd be like, "Oh, yeah, I know that guy. I was like all these different cons, so it'd be super cool." Like it's funny. It seems it's a very tight knit group. They all seem to keep tabs. They're not in tabs, but know each other well. So
Oh, cool.
lovely. So, are you from Tennessee originally?
Yeah, born and raised. It's I've been elsewhere. I studied theater in Chicago for a while, loved it, but looked into doing theater there full time because my background's in theater mainly. My first published writings were plays, and just things shifted in my life, and I started writing for animation, and I decided, I can just do that from home. And every time I leave and come back to Chattanooga is such a an arts forward city, which is kind of a contrast to the surrounding area. It's just is this nice little oasis. I've always really adored it.
Yeah, I like that there seems to be areas. Not to get into the political side of things, but eras in your country where it seems like there's a super cool artsy area, like right beside a super like uh far right kind of area, or like seemingly far right sort of area that really doesn't seem to be super supportive of like the arts, or at least super supportive of censorship in the arts or things like that artistic people sort of disagree with. But I always find that funny. It seems like Texas has that for the big one, and you guys as well. So I just think that's really cool that there's like these cool little cities that are like the art havens that are sort of like the bastion holding the wall back. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. It's typically just the larger cities and the rural areas, but it's like clockwork, and there's a math to it. Just everybody goes to everyone who tends to go to the larger cities and congregate around, people in cities tend to be a certain political leaning and a certain, social leaning as well. Not to, get into the weeds of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, this whole podcast is the weeds, but I don't want to make it like super. I should just call it the weeds. Actually, that's a great idea.
That's great.
Yeah. But like it's sort of just about getting to know you as a person, and if going off to talk about that is something that's you're passionate about. Hey, that's power to you. But did you so I guess theater being I'm a theater person too. I do plays and stuff as well. I've never studied it, but I've been doing amateur theater, directing for 20 years now.
Nice.
I've always endeavored to try to do it more professional, so there's not a ton of options in my neck of the woods, but it's always nice to branch out as much as you can. So was that something you had to focus as a kid as well, or was like comics a part of your childhood?
I mean, comics came first, just from virtue of reading them and inheriting my father's passion for Marvel from him. And
what were his favorites?
So when he met my mother, they were I think 18 and 19. So they were 18 and 19 when they got married. My father 19, my mother 18. A very short courtship. This was Vietnam era, and I think that kind of rushed things forward with the marriage. But he was reading Daredevil when they met, and I've always tried to like pinpoint the month they met and try to find exactly what issue he was reading, and that'd be like a Christmas gift or a birthday gift. But I think I'm just gonna have to get a full year's run because it's hard to pinpoint the year. But that had to have been 74, 75. I was born in 87, and I don't know if it was from his collection or if he wanted to buy it for me, but he bought me I received a copy of Marvel Team Up Annual number 6, but the reprint, which is I've got it right here actually, Marvel Tales featuring Spider-Man 247, because I always did reprints. And it had Cloak and Dagger and the New Mutants and Spider-Man, and it's just this, single shot the story's one and done. You get everything you need to get. There's a fun Lucky Charms gummy candy advertisement in there that I always loved. So comics have always been a part of my life. I must have had that when I was 6 or 7. But in high school, I started doing theater after being a band kid for so long, and just deciding, I'm going to do something else my senior year. So I, joined the improv team, started doing theater. Then my first paying job was as an actor in a murder mystery theater.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at 15, I played a not so progressive character named Richard Lemons, which was a parody of Richard Simmons.
Okay.
And it probably, looking back, it wasn't the greatest, fine performance, I'm sure, but it's probably not the greatest content.
I'm sure if he was in the audience, he would have been very.
Yeah, I hope so. I'd like to think so.
He would have been. Well, they say an imitation is a serious form of
yeah, but it also just wasn't. It focused on certain aspects of Richard Simmons' life, but not so much.
Not as philanthropy or as
not as good deeds.
Yeah, not as good. Maybe
that was
that's funny.
Yeah, I just kept going from there. I joined a theater conservatory that was a satellite of the New Actors Workshop out of New York, but that was in Chattanooga. So I was still in Chattanooga. Every big moment of my life is in Chattanooga.
Really?
Got the bug for improv, so I studied at Second City for a summer. Did a couple of auditions there. One for the touring company and one for the Atlanta company, which no longer exists. A 2 summer thing, published and then produced in Chattanooga. The local theater kid could do, but then after being married for several years and COVID hitting, it just kind of came to an end. So I haven't really done so much theater, but in that time, after getting the plays published and wanting to work more as a writer, I started pitching to animation studios, and because animation was always just another passion. In 2017, I ended up in Burbank pitching to Nickelodeon, Frederator, and Disney. Nothing came of it. It was great, a lot of fun. But I had this catalog of scripts, this 20 series deep catalog that I wanted to explore. And I found a way to get into comics. And that catalog slowly started going from animation to
cool.
To comics, one of which got published. It was originally just a short for Frederator that didn't get picked up, but it became Grandma Tilly's Helltech Mech, which was my first published comic, but not my first contracted comic.
What was the first the contracted one?
So the first one was Death Comes for the Toymaker, which came out. This was in 2021 when it was contracted to Scout Comics, and for various reasons that are very publicly accessible on Bleeding Cool's website. I got my rights back from Scout Comics and eventually got it published through Magma Comix. And then,
do you want to expand on that? Because I'm actually unfamiliar with this. So what?
Okay, yeah,
yeah, sure.
So I'm on certain. I can say some things and I can say some things.
Sure.
So Death Comes for the Toymaker was my entry into comics. I said to myself, I want something that's going to have at least an image on the shelf that a reader is going to want to say, I need to see more of that. And hopefully a publisher will say, we want to see more of that. So a big thing in indie comics is public domain characters and crossovers. So the one that sprang to my mind was Santa Claus and Death, which apparently had, I struggled to find any instance of this in the past, and it's not something I wanted to do if I found an instance of it before. So it was just that it started as this story about a contract between Death and Santa Claus, where Santa gets his immortality, but Death gets a day of vacation a year. the same day that Santa Claus is delivering his presents, he also has to steal souls from those who are due. But in the process, it became also a retelling and direct sequel to the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Okay.
So Santa Claus became Gil the Toymaker, who no spoilers
Gilgamesh
there.
is Santa Claus. That's hilarious.
Yeah, and he rides a chimera, and it's got a lot of the pitch pages were just the first like 6 pages, and there's a lot of like this is Ryan Cody on art, who is an incredible colorist, but also an incredible artist, and he doesn't give himself enough credit for the art side. Pencils and ink specifically.
Yeah, the art's
But he
beautiful.
had this. Yeah, he did this like Toth/Mignola style for the pitch pages, and it ends on this splash page of this Santa Claus analog riding a chimera. So it did well, and the cover is just like a Santa Claus type character in death fighting on a rooftop, and it's got the title "Death Comes for the Toymaker." It was formulaic in such a way that like it checked all the boxes that hopefully a publisher or a reader would want to read more. So Scout signed a contract, and it was a pretty quick process. We got the series together. The first issue came out from Scout as well as an ash can, but then there was some online concerns about issues between the creators at Scout and Scout Comics themselves about the typical things you see when these things come out, about lack of pay, lack of transparency.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
and all kinds of things similar to Action Lab and other indie publishers before that. This was back when Twitter was Twitter. I did a tweet that was kind of the middle road, supporting both creators and trying to navigate the what it must be like as a publisher having to go through this process. I thought it was a very middle ground, shades of gray tweet, but I ended up getting a termination agreement.
Oh wow!
And I accepted it, and no hard feelings on either side. They hooked me up with my editor, Andrea Molinari, who is a literal biblical and mythological scholar, so really helped out on the subject material. But I shopped it around after that. I got all my rights back, which, not to be the like a bootlicking company man, but you can't say that for every publisher.
No, God, no. That's you lucked out on that end.
I think a lot of the creators ended up lucking out that way, getting their rights back. So power to Scout for that, and hopefully, I can't think of any creators that are haven't had their rights returned from that scenario so far. But I pitched to a couple places. I was always intrigued by Magma because it was the comic arm of Heavy Metal magazine, which just sounded cool, and they had gone independent at that point. And I had a finished graphic novel, essentially a 6-issue series. So they said, let's release this Christmas time this next year as a graphic novel. And the only editing we had was removing the words "to be continued" on the last page of each chapter or each issue, and just releasing it as a one-shot thing. Really quick and easy process, and it did well enough that we won Comic Book Resources Comic Crown for Best Original Graphic Novel in 2024, which was a shock because it didn't have I got a termination agreement at some point, and you don't expect that. And also a shock because this Comic Crown award was brand new, and when everybody found out that it was happening, 2 weeks later, we found out who the winners were. So it was a really quick and a nice honor.
I'd say.
Don't know who at CBR read it and suggested it, but God bless them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's very cool. Well, it's quite an intro into comics, right? Like.
Yeah, it was a crash course, definitely. You got to see all the ins and outs and all the ups and downs very quickly, really.
I lost earlier when you were talking. There was just a glitch, so I missed a bit of your audio. But you said you worked.
Sorry.
It's okay. No, I don't think it was the internet, whatever.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've been lucky because I've had interviews with people in the past, like and most times they've been like really older people that aren't really
Mm.
good technologically, and they'll be talking and sometimes the feed it'd be so slow for them to get like what they'd say to get back.
Oh yeah.
If I were to try to say something, it would like they would be halfway through a story and then it would come through. So they're like there are certain episodes if anybody's listening that you might be able to pinpoint them out where like you don't hear me talk hardly at all because or there's a long pause between when they finish their story and when I ask the next question
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's me trying to like navigate it. Everything else has been fine. It was just
Oh
one
gosh.
spec there. But so you said you went to Second City, which is really cool, by the way. A friend of mine's sister works there. I'm not sure what she
Oh
does.
really?
Yeah, she's from here in Nova Scotia, but I'm not quite sure what exactly her job is there. But she teaches some kind of class.
Oh cool. Is
But
that in Chicago
in
or?
Chicago, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I think the Toronto closed up a few
I
years
believe so,
back.
yeah.
Yeah.
Something to do with music, I think, is her deal.
Okay. Yeah.
But anyway, so I've always been kind of enamored with it. I mean, obviously Saturday Night Live and the improv world. Is the Atlantic one that you mentioned, was that the touring one where they went on like cruise ships and stuff, or is that a separate thing?
It might be separate. So they Chicago has their like main troupe,
Hmm.
which to get to that, it's kind of this is kind of why I stopped auditioning is because it became very clear to me that it's you kind of have to you don't have to, but it's highly suggested, wink wink nudge nudge that you
Hmm.
go through their conservatory first.
Hmm.
And I had just finished a 2-year conservatory at my theater, and I wasn't at the time ready to do another 2-year stint from beginning to end.
Hmm.
But they have their main group, which is typically um, filled through auditions from their touring group. That's the kind of the process of getting in. You get in their touring group through auditions, most likely through working in their conservatory or you learning through their conservatory.
Hmm.
And they have their main troupe. But the touring troupe is the one that just like it is everywhere. And they might have a separate second one for cruise ships, but they they do the full circuit. They do the the business luncheons, the theaters that'll let them in. But the Atlanta one was just it was at the Alliance Theater, which is the the big theater in Atlanta.
Hmm.
For well, for most things, there's art. There's an art house next door and the theater there. But they were just trying to do a main cast of a Second City, and they did 2 seasons, maybe 3. I don't know if the numbers weren't there or they just uh, weren't if it wasn't right for the area because Atlanta also has Dad's Garage, which is a big improv theater, and they have the Basement, which is another improv company there.
Hmm.
My friend J Star runs. And it's just it might have been just the fact that there was so much there already that they couldn't really get the people in. So right now, I'm pretty sure it's just Detroit might still be there, but Chicago is the big one. And there's always every year you hear this might be the last year for Second City because so many smaller underground theater companies or just IO Improv Olympic and Chicago so big.
Hmm.
Um, there's always it's always on the sword of Damocles is hanging over their head every year.
Well, they seem so
Um,
connected to like SNL and these other things. It's kind of like when I was growing
yeah.
up, I mean, there were reruns because I'm sure the show was over by the time it came to me. But um, the like SCTV was a big part
Mm.
of Canadian television. I know they played it in the States as well.
Oh yeah.
But like that was Second City TV. Like that was the Toronto version, and all those actors, many of which are still huge. And like I guess it's
Oh
just
yeah.
that it's just such a rich wellspring of talent when it comes to comedy acting, anything really in general. But like all those guys from Second City, the ones that are still alive, are generally still household names when it comes to film comedy. And even like a lot of the Groundling guys that went through you know Second City, went through SNL, they're all huge too. So like it's
Mm.
just like this it's kind of like such uh like a deep well of creativity that seems like almost I guess you never hear about the people that don't make it through it, but the
Right.
ones that have, like they're just such a like culturally so significant that I must be kind of daunting to be involved with something that has brought that out,
Yeah.
into the
Yeah. And
world.
it's it's odd. There's a different class of different styles that come out, because Chicago's typically seen as more of the political suit and tie type comedy. Toronto in its day was all character based, character driven. And then the Groundlings is also pretty character driven. So I think a lot of the sourcing for SNL or Mad TV or just pilot season typically would come now from the Groundlings, just by virtue of proximity in LA, but also by virtue of it's all big character based things and not overly intellectual, I guess I would say. But it always shifts back and forth, but typically it feels like Chicago's the like I said, the suit and tie intellectual comedy, which might not be everybody's cup of tea.
I mean, I don't have I guess when it comes to comedy, I wouldn't say I have a particular cup of tea. I mean, I kind of I mean, I'm going with some friends to see the new Naked Gun movie today, which I'm kind of excited about. I'm not sure why,
very
but
exciting.
I mean, I love the old one so much, and this one actually looks like it's very much in honor of that. So I'm excited that might get to live on in that way. But yeah, I know it's funny when you think about like the like I listen to Mark Maron's podcast a lot, and he has this sort of kind of, when it comes to comedy and stuff, he seems to have sort of a rigid definition about like what fits into stand-up, what fits into these other worlds, and it almost seems like there's a level of not disdain but resentment towards people that go through like the academic version, like people that like studied at Harvard and are now writing comedy shows and stuff. Like the like, I don't know why, but something about comedy in a way seems that you need to struggle somehow to get there, right? And it seems like if you already start off on that level, you're not quite. But what I love about like the guys that have gone through those systems and come out the other side is that, like, even just like, I'm a big fan of Bill Hader. I mean, he's one of my favorite actors, and he's hilarious. But he's such a knowledgeable guy about like film and television. You watch him on the Criterion Channel, he can talk about like so many. Like, I think Ikaru, he said, was his favorite movie, so like that's not one that comes up super often. But the idea, like, he was talking, I think it was on Colbert, he was talking about like his audition for SNL, and he was saying how he did like James Mason trying to buy a dozen donuts with like an expired coupon, and that's what I love about like the comedy, those people, because like who the fuck knows, you know what I mean, as a young person who James Mason is, unless you're like a film guy, but to pull that out of your pocket and be like, here's my James Mason impersonation, and be like, oh my God, like even by modern day standards, he's been relevant for like 40 years. So probably more than that actually, but it's hilarious. So that's what I love, because it seems like those people have such a deep love for every part of it, that they're just all over, like such a deep wealth of knowledge.
Oh yeah, it's fascinating too, because he's, Bill Hader has his range of dozens, hundreds of impressions, but I mean, he did Vincent Price, who, to me, I recognize Vincent Price, of course, but like your average teen watching SNL won't. But he also did Alan Alda auditioning for Jurassic Park
and Star Wars.
Brilliant. Like the impersonation is wonderfully brilliant, and somebody might know him from that one episode of 30 Rock that they saw,
right? But
your average audience now might not know MASH or Four Seasons or other works he did, but it's still, despite that, it's still rooted in such designed comedy that it doesn't matter. The Vincent Price is such a caricature. It's all caricatures, I guess. Like when I was watching Looney Tunes as a kid, they would always do, one of my wife's and my favorite episodes were the ones where they did the celebrity galas and just panned through Clark Gable would fly away with his big ears, and that was it. It was just a caricature. And then Peter Lorre would be there, and he'd talk about his chicken wings or whatever. And I didn't really know who Peter Lorre was at 6 years old in the early 90s, but it was still hilarious.
That's true, because like Lorre was like so like Casablanca and like M and like I guess M specifically was like one of his more creepier ones, but I guess he did like The Raven and those other weird horror movies later. But like the idea of like I guess you just know he's supposed to be a creepy character, and making him like Peter Lorre is just sort of like making the animators or the writers have something fun for them to do. That's hilarious. Because he's always just like these,
and it doesn't matter if you've seen any of his movies. I could name I've seen M. I think that's all I've seen with Peter Lorre.
Casablanca? You never said Casablanca?
I actually haven't. No.
There you go.
Which is it's a shame. I need to.
He's not a big part of it, but he is in it.
Okay. Um, but yeah, it didn't matter that I didn't know who he was, and same thing with Bill Hader, and just like content in general. If the content's doing what it's supposed to do, these references are nice, but they can be lost on somebody and still have entertainment value.
Well, do you find that as like an improv performer that like part of it is injecting something into it to make it interesting to you, but also making it accessible? But if the funny's there, it doesn't really matter if they get the reference or not, you know?
Yeah. So in improv, there's two schools of performance, and that's short form and long form. And people who prefer one have a disdain for the other most of the time. Because short form is the party games that you'll see on Whose Line Is It Anyways, where it's like, I'm going to ring a bell and then you're going to say a different thing. And it's fine. But I studied under a guy named Keith Johnstone, he was at the Loose Moose Theater Company. He taught the kids in the hall.
Oh, wow. Also I'm a huge fan of
yeah, brilliant. One of my favorites is just they're running from the zombie and they keep throwing shoes that keep populating out of nowhere. It was an opening. I don't know why it sticks with me. It was brilliant. Cabbage Head as well.
So many. I was talking to someone about the Eradicator one the other day, the racquetball guy, and he's just like, who are you fighting in racquetball this week? Someone called the Eradicator, and he's got the full ski mask. He shows up at his work and he's like, "You're gonna lose on Tuesday. I'm the Eradicator."
Oh, it's fantastic. It's Mark McKinney going from Kids in the Hall to SNL and not translating so well to live comedy or filmed live comedy, at least, as he did with America Didn't Know What They Were.
I feel like he could have. They should have given him more time. He was so good. I
adore him.
All of them were. Yeah.
But yeah, they were taught by. I mean, they were taught by several people, and they were self-taught in a lot of ways. But Keith Johnstone was a big influence on them. And he traveled to Chattanooga. Chattanooga became this like wellspring of improv
that's cool.
gurus coming in. There was a few people that were just kind of like sponsoring all these people to come in because we had a wild improv community for years. It's kind of fizzled out lately. It's kind of sad, but so his big thing, he teaches a performance called the Maestro, which is a long form, and a lot of people won't like it because in the middle of performances, he's actually involved. He's the director. So he will, tweak things as the performance goes on, as the story goes on, but it's part of this long form. Other ones are called like the Herald was the big one out of Chicago. There's one called the Armando, and they're all just like variations of the same thing, X amount of scenes after a monologue. But his catchphrase about comedy, within improv, but just in general as well, is that like a gag, something that's a funny joke or a one-liner, it's cotton candy and it's delicious, and it's a great flavor that sits with you for a second and then it's gone. But if there's something you can do deeper, something that lasts longer, that's funny on the surface, but also means something in the narrative and drives the story forward, that's a good steak dinner. It's hearty and it's going to sit with you, until the next day at least. So I think it just really comes down to the content. That's why my goal in comics is always to move to the next panel. I love gags and I love one-liners, but if those aren't driving the reader to the next panel or to the next page, are they worth it? So that's always a little bit of analytical horror I sit with.
No, but that's like, I guess that's the interesting part of it to me, because comedy's something, I guess, because improv doesn't necessarily need to be comedy, but it just generally tends to go that way. But the idea, and even as an actor myself, like I've been in a few like indie film projects where you've had to improv a scene or add some dialogue just to fill in something. So there's like a level of it being there, but the idea of the spontaneous nature of it, but also the analytical side of it, like you can literally, like, it's same with acting. I mean, you can look at a thousand different acting methods and just say, okay, well, the Meisner method or the Stanislavski.
Oh, we're getting into real theater.
Yeah, I know. Like the ideas behind those things. I love that there's even, because some people get so deep into that, that this is the way, and maybe it's just finding the way that works for you. But some of these people that are so deep of thought into these particular methods of acting, they don't see other ones or don't see the value of other ones. So the idea that like so many people can be doing the same thing, but approaching in such a different way. I find very interesting, and I feel like improv brings that to a level as well. But do you like? I've never been a full method person. I've never really understood it. I get it. I understand it. But I don't think I need to dress as Lincoln and walk around set all day as Lincoln to be,
No.
to get into the head of Lincoln.
Yeah.
I can't remember what show it was. Somebody that was in like Lincoln with Daniel Day-Lewis was talking about, and it might have been.
Oh, it was Paul F. Tompkins, I believe.
Was that it about the shoes? That like someone wore sneakers one day, and like one of the guys in the set, and he was like, "What are these fantastical things you have on your
I
feet?"
think
It was
so, yeah.
giving the guy a hard time about it the whole time. Or somebody he knew from some other thing came up to him. He was like, "Danny, how's it going?" And he's just like, Daniel Day-Lewis, like, and kept talking to him and just ignoring everything about how everyone warned him beforehand, like
Yeah.
not to talk about anything relevant. He just like Spielberg, he just totally ignored him and went right to him and just talked to him. Didn't give a shit at all.
I respect it to an extent, but it's got to be an exhausting thing to do and live with.
Hmm.
I never experienced that myself. I mean, some people I performed with did certain things like that. There was a technique we had called, and this is not the Mormon term. It was called soaking.
Okay.
Where it was like the slow process of memorizing in the lines and like reading them to yourself on the floor while also trying to get in touch with the moments from your past that would mirror this in some level. Even if you haven't been a drug addict, you have had the feeling of being out of control or things like that. And even that to me got a little, it became too much. At the end of the day, somebody says action or, the curtains rise and you're in the proscenium and you're just pretending to be somebody else. And
yeah, like connecting it to something. I get that it might help you remember it. I find repetition helps me the best. Like if I could spend it, like that's why when I watch people that do like Broadway or something, and they do the same show for like years, and the idea that like they only have a couple weeks or a month or something to rehearse, but they're doing it every day like 3 or 4 times. Like to me, that would be easy to connect it that way. But some people, like I've been in plays with people that have trouble with lines, and sometimes when they drop one or they forget something or they jump ahead by 6 pages, there's this level of like improv where you got to like you have to get them back, or try to, so that the important key parts of the story are told. But I remember watching a version of I think it was a one-act version of The Play That Goes Wrong or something, and
okay, yeah.
as the one-act play that goes wrong, I think was like their version of it. So, and there's a scene where the actors on stage, because the whole play is around this theater company that's having problems doing a version of the play, and all the mistakes and all the stuff happens on stage. And that's all part of it. But there's a part where one actor forgets a line, and well, nobody knows who does it, but they just keep circling. So they do a scene, they say a thing, the other guy says a thing, and then it comes back to the first guy who says the first line again, and it just keeps going around. So they keep doing the same scene like 4 times in a row. But as they're doing it, they're all getting more increasingly frustrated by it because they're not advancing. And the guy in the play who's not giving the correct line, at one point, the dude that says to him the line grabs him by the collar and yells the line in his face. And then he goes, "Oh," and then he says the right line and it continues on. But it was so funny because I was sitting in the audience watching it, and the guy that has done that to me in the past was the guy in the play that forgot the line. Yeah, I was like, oh my God, I'm watching it happen to something. Like, I know it's part of the play, but the idea that like somebody in the past that I've had a cover for was part of it in the play. Like to me, I thought that brought a whole new level to it. I imagine I'd probably remember that. A lot keener than that. But do you have do you have an acting style or method that you follow?
No, I mean, I've not set foot on the stage in about 5 years, not from, protest by any means. I would love to. Long form improv is my heart. These, telling these stories where nobody knows what's going to happen. The audience, gives 1 or 2 suggestions, where you have a guest monologist and just form essentially a 3-act play together. There's been some magical moments.
Yeah, that's cool. That sounds really cool. I feel like since the audience is so involved that like when you get there, it's got to be very rewarding for everyone. The actors, the audience, everyone.
Yeah. And the thing I've always said that like horror and comedy have they tickle the same pleasure centers in the brain.
I agree. I'm a huge horror fan too. So.
Like the whole reason comedy is, joyous and horror can be so horrifying is because there's a sense of shock or fear or surprise. It's always shock and surprise, on either side of the pleasure spectrum. So a good improv show, even if it's not funny, even if it's not like here's a gag, here's a joke, here's a funny thing, even if it's not built around slapstick or anything else, if it's a straight serious story, the audience is still going to laugh. They're going to have a sense of enjoyment because there's always this sense of shock, sense of surprise. When there's a callback, which typically comes pretty naturally to the performers, it's very much a surprise to the audience. So even if it's just, remember this thing, now we're bringing it back, and it's not a joke, it's not a gag, it's still this, it will always invoke this laughter from the audience because you're tickling that surprise part of the brain. Which that's a tangent. I didn't.
No, that's cool.
But as far as like performance style, no, I always like just trying to believe the moment, believe the lines, as long as you're doing that job. One of my for 2 years of an actor's conservatory and doing all these various techniques from Meisner to Stanislavski to, more modern or classical styles. The one thing that I retain that has been the most useful to me, and, if I ever, when I did shows and directed people who weren't too familiar with, performing and were there because they were, friends of a friend, things like that. The biggest piece of advice I always have for performers is physically breathe in your scene partner's lines and breathe out your line, because there's just this natural rhythm to breathing. If your line's on an exhale while you're taking in your
I never thought
not opponents, your scene partner's line, it just feels more natural for the performer and it feels more natural for the audience. Which isn't really a comment on style, but it definitely invokes the style. Yeah,
it's very important. And breath work is like for singers and stuff, it's key, but also for actors too. I mean, if you have a big dialogue, you got to run and dive. And I do a lot of different things. One of them is I'm a professional wrestler as well. So cool. So obviously there's aspects of improv that go involved with that. But the idea of breath work and those things is important. It's key to movement to everything, especially if you're in a physical play. No, that's super cool. Awesome. So, well, the plays you wrote, I guess, leading back to your comic, are they still out there? Are they available to the public?
They might be out there on eBay or something. I had a publisher that was a children's theater publisher that was getting into more adult, not pornographic by any means, it's more mainstream plays. And they picked up 3 of mine. One was a short play about Robin Hood and Richard III, where I guess I have this obsession with where Robin Hood is so obsessed with protecting the name of Richard that he escapes mortality to not just protect Richard the First, but Richard the Third.
Okay.
It was cute, and I'd love to revisit it. That was published, as well as one that won a youth award. Oh no, not. Let's see, one that won a runner-up award at a local theater competition, and then another that was called King of the Woods. It's a fun one. I say that name because it's worth looking at still. I would put that on as it is now, but the other one was called Following Orion. It would need some heavy edits for it to be acceptable in my eye today. This was 20 years ago, some odd. So I don't think they're technically available now. They're definitely not being published. But this publisher decided to use their around, let's say 2015, 2016, they decided to use their platform online to not, advertise their plays, but to, support staunchly certain political candidates and ideas that I did not agree with, and didn't want to have my name tied to. So I dissolved my contract, which was an easy process. I would love to revisit them and put them on one day. I've written some plays recently that I've sent out to various theaters and the like, but it's not a community I'm really connected to anymore, so it's hard to get back into.
No, if you
Um,
ever if they're open and you're open, send me some. I'd love to read them. I mean, I'm part
oh
of the
yeah,
theater group, so hey,
I would revisit a new one and send it your way.
sure.
I'll look into that soon. I think I need to add uh, an, some flashback scenes to make some things make sense because it didn't work out like I wanted it to.
Mm.
But it was fun, and I kind of miss writing for theater, but comics has been uh, such a blast that if I never went back to it, I would not see my days, doing all that theater training as a waste because it's led to this in a lot
Yeah.
of ways.
Well, as you mentioned when we started the Grandma Tilly's Helltech Mech, so
Mm.
that was an original picture and animated series. I'm guessing that based on what you were saying earlier.
Yeah, it was a short. It was called Five Star Scooper Bot at first. Scooper being that universe's version of like Lyft or Uber.
Mhm.
Um, and when I went to Disney, I pitched it as a Donald Duck short, which honestly it was a quick Control F to just replace Tilly with Donald Duck, and it worked very well.
Hmm.
Um, uh, but everybody I knew at both Nickelodeon and Disney after that meeting within 2 months shifted to other companies because that's what it is in animation. It's always a
Hmm.
shift. And now with streaming being what it is, nobody's really looking for new content. They're looking for legacy content, which I totally get. Don't have to pay for legacy content. You already own it. Um,
Yeah, but it's so shiftless. I mean, come
it
on,
is.
like the I
We're on
once
season 42 of SpongeBob right now, I think.
we were doing, yeah, well, Simpsons or anything else, right? But we were doing a play. What was it? So a few years ago, I did a play version of Frankenstein,
Oh,
and
cool.
it was the one that Danny Boyle directed that had Benedict Cumberbatch, John Lee Miller in it that they did in England. I was a huge fan of that, and I'm a big fan of the Frankenstein story in the book. So I directed and I played the creature in it. I co-directed and I played the creature in it. But shortly after that, I did. I think it was like the next year. I did a Kurt Vonnegut play called "Happy Birthday, 1 June," which I'm a big fan of as well. Kurt Vonnegut in that play particularly. But I remember at one point we were doing something. I think it was after that one of the guys in the play was working on. He wanted to do a play version of this. Was it Horn? Rhinoceros, I think it was called. It's like an old play that they made into a movie, but it's about like where all the people in the towns are turning into rhinoceros. And
Yeah,
Gene, I want to
is it
say,
Ibsen?
what's his face is in it? Gene, Willy Wonka.
Gene
Um,
Wilder's in it?
yeah, I think so. But anyway, he looked at that. They ended up doing God of Carnage instead because
Okay.
I think the board of directors in the community group thought that would be more palpable to our
Okay.
audience, I guess. But I remember when he was talking about it, I was saying like because our theater group does a lot of like goofy comedies.
Yeah.
And I like they're fine, but they're not super rewarding artistically. I find often I like comedies. There's no reason like Happy Birthday 1 June had a lot of comedy in it, but it's like a black comedy, so it's like
Mm.
you're hitting at some real world stuff there, and some themes. But I remember telling him, I remember saying, like I think I said MGM's logo is was it artist gratis artist or something gratis artist, which is like art for art's sake. And then the guy Liam, the other guy in the play was doing this other play, goes, "That is MGM's slogan." I said, "Yeah. Can you imagine if some poor schmuck goes into the boardroom after something tanked and meant like, well, for art's sake,
Art for
right,
art's sake.
boys, right?" And see how like you think they'd all be like, "Oh, you're right. That's fine. Go ahead. You can make something else."
Oh yeah.
But I feel like there's gotta like, I think it was. I'm sure I quoted this on the show a lot, but Dustin Hoffman said that like the problem with art as a business or movies as a business is that they're an art form, and the problems with movies as an art form is that they're a business. Like it's such a
Mhm.
weird tightrope, and it's like you're never gonna get a new legacy thing if you don't take a chance and try something new, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. And I mean, even like the Rugrats reboot, I don't think it did very well. And the CGI one, so
No,
they're
right?
still taking risks rebooting. Might as well take a
Yeah,
risk with the even if it's like Lore Olympus was a web comic then a comic, and I think it's getting a show now.
right.
Even if you're sourcing it from popular material people already know, sure it's a risk, but like there's a built-in audience already.
Hmm.
You might have already lost your audience to Rugrats just by aging out. Um, so it's fascinating. It's been not a crumbling industry by any means, but as somebody from the outside, with a window in just through virtue of pitching and having meetings, there's a lack of stability just by virtue of nobody really knows what they want to put on, and some of that's, like I said, from streaming, because that's affected a lot of things. But
it's diminishing returns too. Like eventually,
yeah,
it's like if I love that thing as a kid, I have to show my kids, assuming I have children, which I don't. But
yeah,
if I did, say like, here's the thing I loved, and hope that they love it to keep that going on. The only thing I think that I could think of besides like Batman and Superman and those guys that was sort of like an original thing that keeps getting reinvented and somehow keeps doing well every single time is your hat, is turtles.
yeah.
They seem to always reinvent themselves every 5-10 years, and then it
Yeah.
seems very popular for a very long time. So
Yeah, I call them, half jokingly, half not, an evergreen property, because they are.
yeah,
Because so many, so much. You had my theater rant. Here's my turtles rant.
yeah, I'll take
And I mean,
it.
so many properties have like used it as the formula, like the core four, with very specific, um, you know, characterizations and interests. And I don't know. I think I've mentioned this before, but it's not like popular acceptance or knowledge. But like, there are 4 words in the title, and there are 4 turtles, and each turtle represents a word, because there's teenage, and that's Mikey. Mutant, that's Raph, because he's wild and he's just like an animal. Ninja, that's Leo. And turtles, it's Donnie, because he's slow and methodical. And they've just taken these characterizations, and gosh, even in the original comics, they killed Shredder in the first issue, and just by virtue of them being turtles and ninjas and already being this like amalgam of ideas, throwing them into a intergalactic war with triceratons and neutrinos and the Fugitoid and the Utroms are there. Just this wild space war. Nobody blinked an eye, I don't think. Even every time something like that happens, it's easy to accept the given reality of it, because it's still grounded in like Manhattan, but the science is still there, and I don't know how they left a back door by virtue of just the title itself. And I love it.
Well, there's no denying what it is. Like when you look at that title, you're like, well, this is just going to be goofy fun, and it generally is. But there's like the creators in the original comic was so much darker, and I've talked to Eric Larson in the show a bit about his version in that Image comic that came out way back when.
Oh yeah.
Even the ones that aren't as good, I mean, in my opinion, like the Michael Bay movies, still had enough success to make at least 2 of them. So there's like, it seems like no matter what, that because they keep doing a new show every, like, I don't know, 5 years or 10 years, that each generation gets its version, and that's the version, right? Like mine was the 90s cartoon, but that's the kids now, probably the Fox cartoon, or even those kids have kids now. That's probably the new one. So
Mutant Mayhem.
Yeah, Mutant Mayhem, or the series that was before that, because there was a different one that was before that, I think.
Yeah. So I had this very unique experience. I liked the 87 cartoon very much growing up. But it was the Archie comics and
me too.
The
Archie
movies,
comics
specifically Secret of the Ooze. Secret of the Ooze is one of my top 5 movies of all time. It's just fun.
It is fun, but I have a lot of issues with it, but in the way that anybody else would. Like, I constantly bring up that, like, they bust into a nightclub, and Vanilla Ice just happens to be there performing, and he also has a pre-prepared rap about them, which he seems to know an awful lot. He's like, they're raised in a sewer by a rat. Like, how do you know this? They're ninjas. Like, they're not supposed to.
I like to think that April's been feeding him some info for the past weeks.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, next week we're going to release this cool song about these, these theoretical turtles that are out there. And then they just happen to bust in, and he's like, guys, it's time. So he just get it. Well,
then they never use their weapons, like just all these things like that.
Yeah, that was
because
ridiculous.
Dumb studio stuff. But that's why the first one was so unique and cool. And that was an independent film, so like, you know, the idea that it made so much money and like
Yeah, I think until like 5 or 6 years ago, it was the top grossing independent film of all time.
Yeah.
You know, with inflation adjusting.
Yeah.
I don't know what beat it, but like for years and years.
I
And
feel
then
like
I
the
mean, the
Blair
first
Witch
one was
Project
perfect.
was it for a while.
Oh, am I done?
But I mean that movie cost like $10,000 to make and made like 500 million.
Oh yeah.
Top grossing independent film of all time is Passion of the Christ.
Oh, was that? What was
Right.
distributed? Well, I guess it was distributed by a studio, but
Distributed by Icon Productions, but an independent studio.
that's,
So
that's Mel
it made
Gibson's.
$917 million in 2004.
Ah, and what a jaunty flick it is. Fun for the whole family.
I often quote that episode of South Park where like I think Eric makes Kyle go see it or something, and he's like sitting in the theater or Stan, I can't remember who it is, but as the movie starts, he's like in his chair normally watching the movie, and then as it goes
Yeah.
along, the time elapse, it just gets like you just hear like someone talking in Hebrew, and then all of a sudden someone's going. "Ah! Ah!" And then like it cuts and it's just screaming and it keeps advancing and he's getting lower in his chair and more beat up looking, and at one point he just like goes blah and like pukes on himself like like it's just what a harrowing story after that is so funny. Okay, well the mech thing. So you changed it and did it into a comic. What was the general concept behind that? Because that looks like a fun book.
So it's about a gaming granny, and this is one of the reasons it didn't do well with studio pitches, because nobody wanted to watch an animation with a grandma, which I disagree.
I disagree
Um,
too.
Okay, good. That's good to hear. But it's a gaming granny who's, playing her favorite video game with the ashes of her husband nearby, who she talks to all the time.
Aw.
She breaks her controller in a fit of rage, and she's like, "I gotta go get one right now from the store." So she calls that universe's version of an Uber called a Scooper. But simultaneously, there is a mech from a hell dimension plummeting to Earth, happens to land right where her Uber would be, or her Scooper would be. She gets in, and then she ends up getting her controller, plugging it in, and piloting the mech on this the battle between this intergalactic space agency from Earth and this hell dimension, which or this hell mech, which eventually turns on Tilly. She's left nearly dead at some point, and then survives through science fiction ways. But it's a lot of fun. It's a 3-issue read. It's nowhere stylistically what I'm doing anymore. That's kind of like the last animation layover from my work. I tend to do more I guess mythological things these days, more like more genre based, like a blend of sci-fi and fantasy, typically, with as many chimera as I can put in. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. We were in talks with Adult Swim for a little while about a series that kind of dried up, but in the process, I ended up hiring a New York City punk band called the Antibodies to do a theme song. So we have a a theme song on vinyl for the comic.
What? That's awesome.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
There's a sequel that's been written. It might happen in the future. This was published through Band of Bards, and the whole comic industry is reeling from Diamond being Diamond and bankruptcy proceedings.
Yeah.
So it's a possibility in the future, but we'll have to see how things are. I've got a comic coming out right now called Something Beyond the Petrichor, about a landscape of acid rain. It's an apocalypse, and the only things that aren't affected are plastics. So this young girl, Jocelyn, and her talking stuffed turtle Quigley survived because their house was under a tarp because her father was working on home renovations. So she goes out with a plastic umbrella surrounded by a plastic shower curtain for safety, and a water gun full of acid rain just in case. And they meet a cryptid. There's all kinds of sci-fi goodness that happens. So issue 2 came out last week, but it might not have come out last week. It might come out this week.
Okay.
I've seen it in stores, but I've
Yeah.
seen it a lot of people saying it's just not in stores right now. I don't know if it's delayed or what. But the publisher's Red 5, who does great indie comics. It's a 4-issue series, and we are going to follow through with Diamond as much as possible. But there are other options they're exploring to get it into readers' hands. So there might be you might see number 1 orderable again in the future in different manners.
Cool.
But yeah, we're all just navigating that at the moment, and it's been. I'm sure you hear this on every podcast.
Not necessarily.
Years.
No, there's a lot of people that are going through the Kickstarter way. Not as many not as many indie guys as I find it that are going through that system anymore. And maybe that's why the system's not doing so well. But I think part of it is also they were like I used to help out at a comic store years ago, and I would do their ordering for them, and they were not very user friendly or or very easy to deal with, and certainly not very negotiable. Like they were just sort of like, well, we're it, so fuck you. If you have any problem, like what are you gonna do? Go elsewhere. There is no elsewhere. Fuck you. Come back.
Yeah.
So I feel like I know Penguin and other people kind of stepped in and started subverting some of what they were doing. But sometimes if you just are just terrible to your customers long enough, eventually someone's going to come along and scoop you.
Yeah, that's the thing. They're no longer the monopoly because there's all these, Penguin and what is it? Filbo is a new one. I'm not too aware of.
What's the one DC is using? It's Penguin's Marvels, but I don't know.
So they're using Universal in Canada, I believe, but they're still doing Lunar.
Right. Okay.
But like Lunar used to take indie comic companies like Small Press and Up pretty easily, but these days they're not really doing it because they're doing so much now from all of this bullshit with Diamond. But there are also some companies like Massive Publishing who are sub-distributing, so like a smaller publisher can go to Massive, and Massive will rep them through Diamond or through Lunar. Okay. So that's helped a lot of smaller press publishers, but there's also fees and licensing and all that jazz you have to go through now. But yeah, I mean, there's all these options now. I've talked to several comic book stores just through conversations, email and phone, but at cons as well. And each one has their like tier list. We order here first, here first, here first, here first, and that way we know we're getting everything we want. And for most of them, Diamond is like number 5. And the ones that are still using it might order indie comics from there, but a lot of small press publishers right now are kind of stuck at Diamond, but it's not going to be the case soon.
Yeah.
Just because of things I'm not allowed to talk about at the moment.
Sure.
But
no problem.
more people are going to have Something Beyond the Petrichor in their hands in the future, and I'm very thrilled with recent updates.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a fun one. It's David Lujan on art, who did some incredible indie horror comics, Narita and Uriko. One about a Korean vampire, and one about just a monstrous, sexy mermaid girl. And he's about to be picked up by a publisher for an exclusive, and I got in just in time to partner with him.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you tend to navigate towards the horror when it comes to your writing? I know, like, obviously the Helmech one is kind of like a comedic take on it, but a Hell Dimension obviously is rooted in horror stuff. So
yeah.
Is that something that you generally like? Your plays didn't sound like they did, but like, is that something you're interested in, or is it just another method to tell a story to you?
I think just by happenstance, because recently I've been doing mostly genre. And when I say genre, I mean like a blend of genre, because that's the big thing in comics, a horror / Western, or a sci-fi / romance, or what have you. And I think just for the fact that I tend to blend so many genres together and try to make something that's close to like a modern myth. That sounds the most full of myself comment ever, but no, I aspire to do like modern myths or modern folk tales. One I wrote recently that I'm currently writing that might have a publisher, I'll find out in the next couple of weeks, is a Southern folklore, but like really plays on the idea of like the devil in the South, because it's such an odd it's not as ubiquitous as the idea of Satan and internationally. When you talk about the devil in the South, it's a complete caricature, but just because of that, it tends to have some horror to it. Like I said, I love a good chimera. I love I try not to do too many formulas for I try to let the narrative flow as much as possible, but I do like it when there is a shock or a surprise on an even number page, because that means you turn to it and you see it and you go, oh. So there's a lot of splash panels I end up having that's some monstrosity or a chimera or somebody being torn in half, just to drive that sense of drive the narrative, but like to pull the reader in again and I've read a couple pages of dialogue and then I'm just going to turn the page. Oh my God. But yeah, just by the fact that, myths and folklore tend to have something horrific in them. It's always part of the content. I don't think I really mean to, but it's always there.
No, I mean, if you look at like the origins of most of the modern fairy tales that Disney made movies out of, they're not quite as cutesy as the movies turn them out to be. A lot of them are pretty dark, and the idea that like you could boil those down to their sort of core versions and see them for what they really are. There's a lot of dark, weird, like a lot of them are weird German, legends, and usually someone winds up dead at the end of them. But when the Disney movie comes out, it's not quite the same.
They were just trying to keep kids out of the woods at the end of the day.
That's true. But I even really dig that weird like period where Disney made like the Black Cauldron or one of those movies that almost ruined them. But that movie is so good, and that's the first thing I got when Disney Plus came out. We got it, and that was like the first thing I watched was that. I was like, oh my God, the Black Cauldron's here. I'm watching this immediately.
I don't know if it was the first, but it was early days because I had never seen it. It was this like mysterious, unavailable entity that I always heard about, and I knew that the books, but like I knew it was like so much of it was cut on the cutting room floor, so I was always kind of a little hesitant to watch it. But it's still, I mean, with everything cut, it's still horrific and
it's awesome.
Wonderful in lots of ways.
And like even like when they made the weird like live action ones too, like from the 80s, like the Black Hole or like the Watcher in the Woods or some of those ones that like didn't do very well either. So like the concept that Disney was trying at one point, like I like that. I feel like
Yeah, I think that was Disney's nephew. I can't remember his name, but he kind of tried some things that didn't necessarily work out for the average audience, but like people like us were like, hell yeah, let's do more of this.
Yeah, he swung for the fences anyway. That's honestly, I often say that I find in modern filmmaking, I find it more offensive if your movie is dull than if it's really bad or really good. I'd much rather it be really bad or really good than just like middle of the road, no risk taken, like no particular interesting things occurring, just very bland. And to me, that's like the most offensive thing. So
the worst thing in a piece of entertainment can be is unentertaining.
Yeah.
That's I mean, it's the antithesis of what you're purchasing media for.
It's like I'd much rather watch The Room than whatever the current reality show that people like is. So yeah.
Couldn't tell you.
Yeah, thanks. Well, what's the next stuff you're working on? Is it just the current comic, or do you have another project you can discuss? Or
I mean, I can discuss. So Something Beyond the Petrichor, issue 3 is out in September. Issue 4 should be October or November. Pending distribution situations, because it's complete. It's been sent to the printer. And then you might see it available again in the near future. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Nothing certain. But I've in the process of writing a 4-issue series called Planet in Red Clay, which is the the Southern horror folktale about a carpetbagger coming to Alabama in 1867 to kind of take advantage of the remnants of the Civil War and people who might need a little extra cash, and then turning into what I called in the pitch pages was a blend of Mark Twain and Silent Hill. I think that's a pretty fair combination there.
Have you seen the Adventures of Mark Twain claymation movie from the
Yeah,
80s?
they've done what I'm trying to do pretty much.
I was gonna say that is pretty much a normal kids movie up until that one segment where they meet the devil, and then it goes back to being a normal kids movie. But that segment is one of the single most disturbing things I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think that's why it's not really available so much anymore. It's hard to find. I've seen it on YouTube. I hate to say.
Oh yeah, that's right. I usually show people it, but the idea that like, this got made. Like someone read that script and was like, yeah, this is fine. They can meet Satan and he can create people and then murder them and show you how unimportant life is, And it's like these kids experience it. I think it's genius. I love it. I just seem so out of place from the rest of it. It's so wild. So yeah, I love that you've taken that and are running with that. That's really cool.
Yeah, so that's I have no news on that just yet, but I might have something in the next couple of weeks to announce there.
That's awesome. Beautiful. You got any con appearances or anything coming up?
Yeah, I'll be at the only ones I have right now are local cons in Chattanooga, or the Chattanooga area. One's more in the Knoxville area, Pigeon Forge specifically, Sevierville, Dolly Parton's home. That will be in October 4th, I believe it is. Just a single day, Saturday. It's actually my first con where I'm invited as a guest instead of being a vendor, which is very, very exciting. It's called the Smoky Mountain Collectibles Show, I believe, which, is a very inclusive name. I'm excited to see what it means when I get there, but I've never been myself, but very excited. And of course we've got the 3 Chattanooga cons coming up in late September, early January, Chattanooga Comic-Con, then Con-Nooga and Chattacon. You can see why I always get all 3 of them mixed up. They're almost the exact same name, very different, but all very, very good in their way. And I should be there in some capacity, but we will see.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing what's next. And
awesome.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Dakota. This is really cool.
Yeah, this was a pleasure. Thanks for scratching all my my happy itches.
Mine too. It's rare I get to talk about like acting like to an extent like this with someone, which is really cool. So.
Oh, same.
Oh, awesome. Well, thanks again. Have yourself a great day.
You do the same. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye. If you haven't my chat with Dakota Brown, the cats seem to have not killed each other in the interim while you were listening. I am making sure they're fine. Having 4 cats is interesting because there's dynamics. Cats are social creatures. They have dynamics, not just with their people, but with each other. And, we have Frodo, who's the little one in the house, just turned a year. And, he wants to play. He wants to run. He wants to play. He wants to jump on the other cats. And some of the ones that are a little older don't want to do that. And sometimes some friction happens when that occurs, which happened earlier, and just monitoring to make sure it doesn't happen now. Be sure to tune in next week to another fun-filled episode of the show, in which I'll be talking with Jason Narvaez. I hope I pronounced that right. I'll double-check when the episode comes to make sure I did. Great chat, great conversation, and that is coming up next week. Be sure to tune in to X-Rated, the X-Men Anime Review Show, the show I do as part of the Swear to Pod Network with Davin Skellhorn. He's a big help with me getting guests for the show, and I appreciate his work and our continued partnership. It's great. Devin's a good guy. So, in the meantime, stay safe, have fun, and read some comics. Watch a horror movie. Watch Barbarian. If you haven't already seen it, watch it again. It's fantastic. This program is a proud part of the Swear to Pod Network.